is the hardest part.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come home. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Wherever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whoever you love, we welcome you. Whoever you love, we welcome you.
Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Toledo on this sunny January 14, 2024. I am Karen Christie, today's service associate. Senior Minister Reverend Tim Barger will lead the service today, and our music is provided by our music director, Jeffrey Maxey, joined by the First Unitarian Choir. We are a church with no doctrine or official creed. Instead, we covenant to support each other in our individual search for truth and meaning. We welcome everyone as we sang in our opening song. If you are a visitor, you may notice in the pew rack in front of you a bookmark with some details about Unitarian Universalism. Feel free to take that home with you. There's also a yellow card that you may use to introduce yourself to us. If you include your email address, we will send you our weekly email. It's with news and events of happenings here at church. As you meet people today, feel free to introduce yourself and ask any questions that you may have. You're also welcome. We also welcome those of you who are joining virtually this morning on the YouTube channel. Later in the service, I will invite all of you to attend coffee, conversation, social hour in Fellowship Hall right at the conclusion of the service. It's one of the perks of making the Sunday service a regular in your schedule when you get to attend in person.
Hello all, I'm Reverend Tim. The temperature might be only 3 degrees outside, but it's warm in our building. Most everything is operating well. And today there's a wonderful blue sky. I'm glad you're here, the in-person folks and you who are watching on YouTube. I hope all are warm and safe. As Karen lights the chalice, let's say the words for lighting together. We are Unitarian Universalists with minds that think, hearts that love, and hands that are ready to serve. Together, we care for our earth and work for friendship and peace in our world.
Please join me in reciting the covenant of our congregation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Today, on our minds, in our hearts, and with our spirits, we think of the ways of the world, the state of the nation, the serenity of our own souls. Perhaps primary for us at the moment is the weather, with several days of cold here and stretching before us. I don't know if it's comfort that we can take from knowing that, cold as it is, our freeze is not as drastic as that hitting most of the nation. Please be warm, be well, help others as you can, and appreciate the workers having to be outdoors, keeping our infrastructure in operation, such as the line people and other electrical workers, emergency responders, and delivery drivers who continue about their business. War is concerning, especially considering that the United States is becoming more involved in actions in the Middle East, while the war of Israel against Hamas and seeming to obliterate much of the West Bank looks to be expanding to militant groups in other places of the region. How can peace be attained amid generations-long conflict? Martin Luther King Jr. said, "We must concentrate not merely on the negative expulsion of war, but on the positive affirmation of peace." He delivered a sermon in Riverside Church, New York City, on April 4th, 1967, exactly a year before his death by assassination. In Why I Am Opposed to the War in Vietnam, he said, "Many persons have questioned me about the wisdom of my path. At the heart of their concerns, this query has often loomed large and loud. Why are you speaking about war, Dr. King? Why are you joining the voices of dissent? Peace and civil rights don't mix, they say. And so this morning I speak to you on this issue because I am determined to take the gospel seriously. And I come this morning to my pulpit to make a passionate plea to my beloved nation." He continued, "Every nation must now develop an overriding loyalty to mankind as a whole in order to preserve the best in their individual societies. This call for a worldwide fellowship that lifts neighborly concern beyond one's tribe, race, class, and nation is in reality a call for an all-embracing, unconditional love for all men. This oft misunderstood and misinterpreted concept, so readily dismissed by the Nietzsches of the world as a weak and cowardly force, has now become an absolute necessity for the survival of mankind. And when I speak of love, I'm not speaking of some sentimental and weak response. I am speaking of that force which all of the great religions have seen as the supreme unifying principle of life. Love is somehow the key that unlocks the door which leads to ultimate reality. This, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Buddhist belief about ultimate reality is beautifully summed up in the first epistle of John. Let us love one another, for God is love. And everyone that loveth is born of God and knoweth God. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. If we love one another, God dwelleth in us, and his love is perfected in us. As we Unitarian Universalists try to center our religion and our actions in love, may we remember the words of Dr. King. Tomorrow is the national holiday for this leader of social justice and recipient of the Nobel Prize for Peace. May we honor him. We hold members, supporters, family, and friends of our congregation near, as so many of us face issues of health, of relationships, of loneliness, of economy, of life. Let's be good to one another, help if we can, and honor our togetherness, even though each of us is so different from one another. We don't know what another person is going through, so give dignity and have grace in your interactions. Hurting is all too common, and healing rarer than we'd like. You might have your own items for meditation, contemplation, and prayer, so we include the unsaid here as we are in community. We can share burdens and be glad for accomplishments. We are together in fact and in spirit. And now please join us for our opening hymn. Today it's number 1054, Let This Be a House of Peace, and the lyrics are on the screen. We'll have help from our choir. If you can and you're willing, please stand.
This be a house of peace, of nature and humanity, of sorrow and elation. Let this be our house, a haven for the healing, an open room for question and our inspiration. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of freedom, guardian of dignity and worth held deep inside us. Let this be our house, a platform for the free voice, where all our sacred differences here shall not divide us. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be the house of truth, where scientists and mystics abide in reverence here. Let this be our house, the house of our creation, where works of art and melodies consecrate the atmosphere. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of prophecy. May vision for our children be our common theme.
Being religious means asking passionately the questions of the meaning of our existence and being willing to receive answers, even if the questions are confounding and even if the answers hurt. Being a Unitarian Universalist means that we don't hand-wave the questions away with some platitudes like, the Lord works in mysterious ways, or let go and let God. Our religion is a lifetime journey, and we follow a meandering path. Our lack of dogma makes the big questions a little more interesting than they might be in a different church. The atheists among us can learn from the theists. The adults can learn from the children. Today we're going to talk about a small selection of the big questions. We have some intrepid volunteers in the sanctuary who have agreed to participate this morning. Each one of them is holding a piece of paper that contains an answer. I'm going to read these questions aloud, and the volunteers are going to see if they can figure out which question their answer answers. Volunteers, if you think that you have the answer to the question that I read, stand up where you are or give a little wave and read your answer out loud, and then I will repeat it into the mic so that everybody can hear. Some of the answers might work for more than one question, so you might stand up and read your answer a couple of times. Some of the answers might exactly align with your spiritual path, and some might leave you highly dissatisfied. This is just a small thought experiment, and the opinions and thoughts expressed reflect those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Unitarian Universalist Association or the First Unitarian Church of Toledo. Are we ready? Question 1. You've got your answers ready? Where do we come from? Rich.
Nobody living knows.
Nobody living knows. Jewel, did you? No? Yes, Paul.
Ordinary organic life forms.
Ordinary organic life forms. Adriana? Mystery and stardust. Very nice, good answer. Adriana, mystery and stardust was the answer we were looking for. Question 2, what are we? Jewel. We are what we do. Yeah, that was the answer. Wait. Mystery and stardust. Excellent, Adriana. Thank you. Okay. Question 3. Where are we going? That's the one. We journey toward ideals we set for ourselves that might change with our life experience. We'll talk about it after. That's a big one, yeah. Question 4, does God exist? Yes?
Not on a throne in a heaven.
Not on a throne in a heaven. Anybody else? Rich? Nobody living knows. Excellent. Question 5. How did life begin? Yes, Jerry.
The Big Bang and evolution.
A big bang and evolution. Nobody's going to speak to the other theories? That's fine, that was the answer to that one. What happens when we die? Nobody living knows. Mystery and stardust? That's beautiful. All right. Question the next. Why do bad things happen?
Because of people and nature and chance.
Because of people and nature and chance.
We are what we
We are what we do. We are the bad things sometimes. Question 7, I think. Is life fair? Yeah, that's correct. The answer is no. Question 8. How can I tell right from wrong? Yes, Jeffrey.
Unitarian Universalist principles can help.
The Unitarian Universalist principles can help. Question 10. What is truth? A mix of what we know and feel. All right, question 10. How am I connected? I'm sorry, question 11. How am I connected with everything else? Yes, Joe.
Like a strand of a spider's web.
Like a strand of a spider's web. Yes. To think, love, and serve, yes. Question 12. Do I have a soul? Joe.
You have a core inner self.
You have a core inner self. Question 13. What should I do with my life?
Unitarian Universalist principles can help.
Brought to you by First Unitarian Church of Toledo. Yes. Think, love, and serve. Anything else? All right. I'm sorry, I thought I heard murmurs from the sanctuary. All right, I hope that at least some of these answers resonated with you and might provide some signposts for your own meandering journey. Thank you very much to our brave volunteers. Blessed be.
Thank you, Daddy. You're welcome, Julia.
Let's sing for the children, as this is the time when they and their teachers leave our service for religious education. Such a beautiful song and very meaningful. Please join me for time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer. This is The Love Curry, written by Matt Rothert in his blog, Yoga Love Food. Our whole family loves curry, which is interesting because I never had it growing up. My mom and grandmother were pretty traditional Southern cooks, so everything had lots of butter and was very protein and carb focused. I ate this way or my own variation of it until I found the yoga path. Then I began to focus more on the vegetables and less on the meat and carbs. Chelsea and I have been making curry since we first met 10 years ago. She had just moved here to California from Hawaii and had this cookbook from a vegan chef named Todd, and we have used his recipe as a base all these years. It is the one thing we have consistently eaten every week or two since we've been together. Nowadays, I sample different curries whenever I have the chance. I love curries from Thailand, India, Africa, and Japan. But the one I make at home is almost always the same because it is so consistently delicious and everyone I have served it to seems to love it. So I call it the Love Curry. According to Chef Todd's recipe, it's an Indian vegetable curry. The reason I call it the Love Curry is that whenever we have a friend or a family that we know that is going through a challenging time, we make a big batch and eat some ourselves and give some to the family in need. A lot of times it's a family who just had a baby, but this last time it was a family who had someone in the hospital for a few weeks and he was just coming home. So Chelsea offered to make them dinner. As soon as she told me, I said, let's make curry. It's easy to make. It just takes a lot of prep, which I love. When I'm chopping the vegetables, I think about who I'm making it for, even if it's just Chelsea and the boys, and I put love into it. Now, that may sound strange to some of you, and it would have to me back in the day, but as I've found a love for cooking and talked to some of the most amazing chefs and watched chefs on cooking shows, I hear it all the time. The best chefs in the world talk about putting love into their food. I truly believe you can taste the difference between food that was made with love versus food that wasn't. I wanted to share the recipe so anyone who knows someone or a family in need, or maybe a nurse or single mom, could make them some love curry and enjoy some themselves. Or maybe you just want to show some love to yourself or your own family. I usually make a lot of it, so I would cook it in a Dutch oven or the biggest pot you have. I prep all the vegetables first because I think it makes it easier when putting it all together. You will need coconut oil, coconut milk, salt, curry powder, turmeric, ginger, onion, carrots, sweet potato, butternut squash, cauliflower, green beans, peas, and cashews. I won't continue with the cooking instructions, but in a moment we'll have a minute of silence to conclude this time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer, while you might ponder who you'd care for with a love curry. I know that talking about food here and later in the sermon might cause some tummies to be noisy. And that can be solved after the service when curry will be served in Fellowship Hall. But for now, please be here now and observe a minute of silence.
This reading is entitled Hope and a Prayer Chicken Curry by Maurike in the blog KT's Bookshelf, posted on December 20th, 2017 by Maurike. When I was maybe third or fourth grade, I asked my mom to make chicken curry. My request was inspired by an episode of the Japanese manga animated series Sailor Moon, when Chibiusa makes chicken curry for a family day at school. Despite knowing who her mother is and finding a loving home with Usagi's parents, Chibiusa doesn't invite any parental figures to the family day and goes about the whole process alone. It's a lonely episode with an uplifting ending, but it inspired me to try chicken curry. My mom did make it, but I wasn't a fan because it was unexpectedly spicy. I don't remember the specifics of that dinner, just feeling disappointed that the meal wasn't as good as I thought it would be. 15 years later, I'm making it in my kitchen from scratch with a ragtag arsenal of ingredients that will hopefully work well together. Curry as an adult, delicious. Since becoming an adult with a kitchen of my own, I taught myself cooking by reading recipes, trial and error experiments, and calling my mom. Despite my refusal to include onions or salt, the biggest flavor boosters, I like to think I'm a good cook, if only for those times I throw a bunch of random ingredients together with nothing but a hope and a prayer that it will work out.
You might blame my silliness for this, or that we never know how a mind spins, but I heard an interview on public radio a few months ago with Raghavan Iyer, who had written a book on the curry trail, which followed the flavor of curry around the world, included recipes, and told how curry influences different cultures and cuisines. For curry is not just one type of food or spice. I finally found a copy of his book, as well as an earlier one titled 660 Curries, through which, in prose and recipes, he thoroughly covered the Indian subcontinent, which included India, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. At the top of this talk, I'll add that we'll have a treat after today's service, as our member Arun Nataraja, whose roots are Tamil, has made some curries for us to sample during coffee hour. We have appreciated Arun's cooking many times, and he usually doesn't make curries, so this is a special day. My silliness, or sacred inspiration it could be, got me to thinking that with its many variations and differences around the globe, and even from its origins as a particular food dish, sauce, gravy, seasoning, way of cooking, curry is like religion. I'll get to the religion part in a couple of minutes, but first I should tell you a little bit about curry. You're in church today, so you know at least a little bit about religion, but you might not have much knowledge of curry. Also, I need to say, I'm not a curry expert, and I'm not a cook. And a white man with southern U.S. roots would not ordinarily be the first person someone would turn to for an explanation. So bear in mind, this is my being inquisitive, not an authority on any type of food. I enjoy curry, and exploring similarities between religion and curry gave me a chance to do some gastronomic research in tasting a few offerings on the menus of local restaurants. You might know that my wife, Jewel, is an immigrant from Trinidad and Tobago, which has the best curry, which had developed because of Trinidad's population having roots in Central America, different parts of Africa, and South Asia. She told me I wasn't accurate in saying Trinidadian curry is well regarded, and insisted I say it's the best. Jewel doesn't often make curry, as she pretty much grew up with it being a regular meal cooked by her mother, who, Jewel said, would curry almost anything. And Jewel was a New Yorker beginning at about age 5. I didn't consult Jewel, so she gets no blame for this. And I won't be giving any cooking instructions, even though much of my curry study for today included cookbooks. In his book, The Curry Trail, Raghavan Iyer wrote, "The word curry was non-existent in any of the languages spoken in India for thousands of years until the British set deep colonial roots in this subcontinent." This book, The Curry Trail, follows the journey and the influence of the colonials and the Indian diaspora itself to comprehend the introduction and acceptance of curries in all their forms, including curry powders and pastes around the globe. That's one of the similarities between curry and religion. Look at the spread of Christianity. From the time of imperial Rome, look at how Islam grew into a world religion with travel of people with origins in Arab countries. Look at Hinduism and Buddhism, having, like curry, originated in the Indian subcontinent and spread worldwide. The word curry itself, in her book, The Nutmeg Trail, which traces the spread of seasoning delicacies that once were traded on the spice trail, think of the reason that Christopher Columbus was said to make his round-the-world expedition, to find a shortcut to where spices were found. Eleanor Ford wrote that for curry, the generic label is one originally imposed by the British, coming by way of early Portuguese settlers who described the spiced dishes Indians ate with rice as curry. This they had adapted from various languages in the south of India, including the Tamil curry, meaning gravy. In 660 Curries, Raghavan Iyer gives another possibility. Words like curry and kadi refer to sauce-based or gravy-laden dishes that existed in India well before the Aryans got there. And with a civilization that spans 6,000 years, you can well imagine their longevity. Perhaps, as some believe, it was King Richard II's palace cooks who invented the word curry in Britain around AD 1390, as they built layers of flavors and textures with sophisticated spicing techniques that involved cloves, cinnamon, ginger, coriander, cumin, and cardamom, among others. Since there is no evidence that they knew either the word kari or kadi in the 1300s, how then did the English know to bastardize those terms to curry? Well, the British were involved in the spice trade before they set up shop in India in the early 1600s. I can only speculate that they picked up one of the Indian words and adapted it to curry. After all, it was the British who tried to capture the flavors of curry years later with a generic blend of ground spices called curry powder. In his book, Curry, Eating, Reading, and Race, Naren Ruthnam gives a larger picture for the word. Curry isn't real. Its range of definitions, edible and otherwise, rob it of a stable existence. Curry is a leaf, a process, a certain kind of gravy with uncertain ingredients surrounding a starring meat or vegetable. It's an elevating crust baked around previously bland foodstuffs, but it's also an Indian fairy tale composed by cooks, Indians, emigres, colonists, eaters, readers, and writers. Curry is something of everything in a way, isn't it? Curry is a concept, kind of like religion, not a specific thing. Naren Ruthnam included curry being a leaf. There is curry leaf from a Himalayan citrus tree used much like bay leaf. Food made with curry leaf is not necessarily curry, and its presence in a curry is not required. Religion, I have said, comes from people, is not of divine origin, and can help us to make sense of the universe, to be in community, to better ourselves. Curry might not do all that, but curry was also developed by people. Some curries might taste divine. Meals, including those with curry, might help us be in community, and the sustenance of a curry might help us to live by eating. Common to religion and to the phenomenon of curry are people, and much of curry's variety comes from religious people. In 660 Curries, Raghavan Iyer gave some history. In the pre-Aryan days, before 1500 BC, everyone in India ate meats freely from over 250 kinds of animals. It's only with the arrival of the Aryans and their beliefs as described in the Holy Scriptures of the Hindus, known as the Vedas, that certain meats became forbidden. Vegetarianism played a big role, especially among the Hindu Brahmins, but other castes and religions continued to eat meats. Specific meats were taboo in some religions, but the one that defied all prohibitions was the chicken in all its forms and glory, except the cluck, perhaps. Its wide availability and easy-to-raise qualities make chicken, even in modern times, the most sought-after meat. In the Nutmeg Trail, Eleanor Ford wrote that early sways on Indian food include Islamic Arab merchants who married locals on the Malabar coast and showed their wives how to cook mandi in underground clay ovens, Jewish settlers who brought Middle Eastern tastes to Kerala, including serving rice with nuts, Persian Shiites who braised lamb with tamarind soured beans in Golconda, and Syrian Christians who passed on word of Irish stew to Tamil Nadu. Meanwhile, she also wrote, a sophisticated vegetarian cuisine was developing in Hindu temples, where flavors leaned toward the earthy and aromatic. All the incoming layers of influence piled onto local Hindu traditions and had to filter through the complex food rules of religion and caste. Ayurveda, too, had great impact, as this Indian science of life underpins the way of eating. Many ways to fullness, similar to religions. And there are many ways that curry and religion can be compared. Today, I include the spread of curry around the world, which reminds me of Christianity especially, but also of other world religions beyond the Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, and others that originated in South Asia. And I'll also give particular attention to the curry or religion arriving in new places, or has a type of outside influence in its place of origin. As this curry and religion idea came to me, I saw similarity in the fact that there are so many different types of curry, and in there being a variety of religious denominations, especially in Christianity, but in other religions as well. Think of Shia, Sunni, and Sufi Muslims, or Orthodox, Conservative, Reformed, Humanistic, and other Jewish congregations. In flipping through cookbooks, I saw that there is religion-adjacent labeling of some dishes. Devil's curry. Dabai in a Malaysian language means leftovers. And Musselman curry. Today, instead of Musselman for the dish, for people, the word we use is Muslim. And those are just two examples. And there's wordplay helping to link curry and religion beyond adapting a local term like Dubai to devil. Our commissioned lay minister, David Strickler, told me that he recalls hearing, probably on NPR, that Indian curry requires two trinities. The wet trinity, onion, garlic, ginger, and the dry trinity, coriander, cumin, turmeric. We Unitarian Universalists seem to love references to trinities. Curry is colonial, people have said. Britain, especially the British East India Company, imposed its empire, known in India as the Raj. And from India, the Britons took versions of curry from their Indian houses to their British homes. And curry took on ingredients from out of India, from the colonists' homelands. Eleanor Ford's The Nutmeg Trail included that their potatoes, tomatoes, cabbage, cauliflower, corn, pumpkins, beans, cashew nuts, and above all, chilies were all adopted enthusiastically. They weren't foods that Indians knew about before the European spice trade. There's a lot of religious colonialism, too, we know. Think of the Holy Roman Empire, or European expeditions to the Americas and all over the world. With Spanish conquest of the Americas as one example, and with other nations' world travel in the age of sea adventure and exploration told in school history books, came mostly not noted in those school books, forced conversion of local people to Catholic Christianity. Also, like the way curry developed in non-South Asian countries, including those in the Caribbean, Japan, and parts of Africa, local styles and traditions were interwoven with the colonial rule, and new immigrants to those countries, many of them indentured servants, brought and adapted their curries. Eleanor Ford said that in their new lands, people had to abandon caste restrictions and cook without familiar ingredients, but food culture is something people tend to cling to, a thread linking new lives to old. So curries adapted and evolved, creating distinctive identities in Africa, the Caribbean, and beyond. Wendy Rahamut told of this phenomenon in Trinidad and Tobago in her book, Curry, Callaloo, and Calypso. East Indian immigrants began to arrive between 1845 and 1917 and were registered under the indentureship system to Trinidad. They brought with them spices which were ground by hand and made into curries, which have evolved through the years to the distinctively delicious curry that has become indigenous to our country. Also remember that people immigrated to India and they influenced the food of their new place, even among well-established tradition. Curries developed by Chinese people in India are an example. Hybrid is in, Raghavan Iyer wrote in 660 Curries, especially in this global community of ours. Curry is only definably Indian, Narum Ruthnam wrote, because India is a country that has the world in it. Another religion and curry link I thought of is knowing that some faiths have their own terms for their religious items, at times in great detail. There are also religious catch-all terms, and I would put prayer in that category when you consider that praise, confession, petitioning, and other aspects all are thought of by many just as prayer. The many curries made from so many different ingredients can be put alongside the different prayers. All still prayer, all the food still curry. Is our congregation's time during a Sunday service of contemplation, meditation, and prayer a religious curry? Curry goes from authentic but having no definition of what's inauthentic, as it has changed and adapted worldwide. Author Colleen Taylor Senn has said, "If any dish deserves to be called global, it is curry. From Newfoundland to the Antarctic, from Beijing to Warsaw, there is scarcely a place where curries are not enjoyed, to reinvented and called authentic." Naren Ruthnam in Curry, Eating, Reading, and Race said that the Bangladeshi, Indian, and Pakistani immigrant cooks in 1970s England who added tinned tomatoes, ginger, garlic, and chili to tandoor-forged chicken to invent tikka masala weren't undoing centuries of tradition. They were innovating and adapting a living cuisine that has sustained itself not by pandering to foreign cultures, but by absorbing them. The inauthenticity of curry is its greatest claim to its position as a reflection of global history and the present politics of hunger, eating, and identity. How is curry like religion? I'll quote Naren Ruthnam one more time. "Eat, pray, love. Curry is good for you, especially when it seems real." That's kind of like religion, isn't it? So be it.
Thank you, Reverend Tim. The words for the offering today are from Kristen Collins. We give to remind ourselves how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and sacred space. We give with the faith that together we have enough. You may give by using the QR code or going to uutoledo.org and clicking Give and then Online Giving. You can also mail a check to the First Unitarian Church of Toledo, 3205 Glendale Avenue, Toledo, Ohio, 43614. And on the back of the pews, you will find an envelope in which you may place your donation and drop it in the basket on the table right outside the sanctuary. As always, we are grateful for your contributions.
Number 404, let's all sing. Is the coming soon part of our service, where we tell you what's on the calendar for next week, we give some announcements, and also let you know what's up for right after the service. Next Sunday at 9:45 a.m. for our spiritual forum, Karen Christie and Stasia Hansen will continue their four-part presentation on Buddhist meditation with a Unitarian Universalist perspective. I think this is the third installment. And then for the Sunday service at 11 a.m. here in the sanctuary and on our YouTube channel, Judy Troutman will be the service leader for our annual social justice service.
And a few items for coming soon. The Capital Campaign is conducting the financial feasibility study. Please check your email, and if you have been asked to be interviewed, please say yes. We really appreciate your time and input. Be sure to schedule with our consultant, Barry Finkelstein, as soon as possible. Thank you. Are you interested in learning Tai Chi? Beginning Wednesday, January 24th, 2.5 weeks from now, Randy Menakis, a certified Tai Chi instructor, will teach weekly hour-long classes from noon to 1 in Fellowship Hall for 10 weeks. Attendees can sit or stand for the class. Cost is $5 per class or $30 for all 10 if paid in advance, and scholarships are available. Please see the order of service or our UUFYI for more information. Sooner than that, this coming Saturday at 1 p.m., the UU Film Club will meet in Fellowship Hall to see Princess Mononoke, a film by Hayao Miyazaki, on our large screen TV. The time begins with a potluck, and Paul Keener will lead a discussion after the screening. And the final coming soon entry is for me to invite you to join us in Fellowship Hall after today's service, not just for coffee, conversation, and social time, but for curries made by Arun Nataraja.
Please join me in reciting the words for us figuratively to send some Unitarian Universalist fire into the community while Karen extinguishes the chalice flame. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.